We remember the silence more than the sound, not the music under the white tent, not the applause. The stillness after a boundary is crossed in public and no one steps forward. Evelyn Carter Whitmore had spent years being the steady one, the reliable one, the one who handled things before they became visible. That afternoon in Naples, something visible finally happened. This is how she carries it. The first thing I noticed was how tightly my father was holding his glass. Savannah had just finished her final piece. The piano shimmered under the tent lights, and the applause came fast, warm, practiced. My father stood near the front, smiling with that slow pride he reserved for her. But I'd seen him earlier by the bar, leaning too close to the club treasurer, speaking through his teeth. "I told you it would be handled," he'd said. "Timing is everything." Now he lifted his champagne and clapped a little too long. "Savannah, sweetheart," he called, voice bright. That was beautiful. She stepped forward, glowing. "Thank you." I stayed near the edge of the tent, linen dress. Simple, comfortable. I had learned a long time ago how to occupy space without drawing heat. A server passed with champagne flutes, another with trays of canapés. Near the side gate, the catering manager stood with a clipboard, frowning at a page. I walked over mostly to avoid the small talk. "Everything on schedule?" I asked quietly. He exhaled in relief. "Yes, ma'am. Just confirming the dessert station change." I saw the revised invoice. I said. The service charge line shifted. "Did you fold the staffing adjustment into it, or is that separate?" He blinked. "You saw the invoice. It came through with the update last week. I just don't want surprises." A man in a pastel blazer turned toward us. His wife tilted her head. The invoice the man repeated, smiling toward my father. "Richard, I didn't realize you were renegotiating catering terms mid-event." The smile on my father's face didn't disappear. It tightened. He walked over slowly, controlled, the way he did when he wanted everyone watching. "What are you doing?" His voice was low, but sharp enough to cut, clarifying the service charge. I replied, "It's minor." His eyes flicked to the clipboard, then to the small ring of guests pretending not to listen. A few of them knew the house had been refinanced twice already. I saw it in the way they were suddenly interested. "You're discussing invoices with staff," he said. The word staff carried weight. "I'm discussing numbers that affect you." He leaned closer. I could smell the bourbon now, not just champagne. You never know when to stop. Savannah had stepped away from the piano. She hovered just outside the circle, uncertain. The man in the blazer laughed lightly. "All in the family, I suppose." That did it. My father's jaw tightened. For a second, I saw it fear. Not anger, fear of exposure, of being small in front of men he'd once outranked. His hand came fast. The sound was sharp. My cheek burned instantly. "You will never catch up with this family." No one moved. A tray clinked somewhere behind me. A woman gasped softly and then pretended she hadn't. I touched my cheek, more to steady myself than from pain. He looked almost relieved, like he'd restored order. "Get out!" he said loudly. "Now!" I nodded once. Not agreement, recognition. As I walked through the crowd, I heard someone murmur, "That's unfortunate." Another whispered, "Stress does things." At the gate, my phone buzzed. Notifications from the family group chat. I didn't open them. I drove home slowly. My face throbbed, but my hands stayed steady on the wheel. By the time I reached my apartment, the decision had already formed, clean and irreversible. I set my keys on the counter and sat at the kitchen table. For years, I had kept things quiet, structured, stabilized, mortgage payments, tuition wires, club dues, private guarantees, all under a trust no one bothered to understand. I opened the folder, not memories, numbers, and for the first time, I considered what would happen if they stopped. I didn't cry that night. I pressed a bag of frozen peas against my cheek and opened my laptop. The folder was labeled Whitmore Family Support Trust. Plain, accurate. 7 years earlier. We had sat in a private banking conference room overlooking the marina in Naples. My father had aged 5 years in 5 months. The real estate partnership he'd leaned on had collapsed. 2 speculative developments stalled. The adjustable rate mortgage on the house had reset the previous spring. Payments jumped sharply. The market turned, he'd muttered, staring at the polished table. Timing. It wasn't timing. The house still carried roughly $620,000 in principal. It had already been 30 days delinquent once before I stepped in. Country club dues were $32,000 annually. Savannah's conservatory tuition was $48,000 a year. Her public relations retainer ran $8,000 monthly. Her Miami lease carried a personal guarantee. He never presented it as a spreadsheet. I did. Savannah is momentum, he said that day. She needs stability around her. And you, I'd asked. I built this family. I won't be the one who loses it. That was when I called Daniel Mercer, a trust and estates attorney I'd worked with on my first company exit. Back at my kitchen table, I dialed him again. Evening. Evelyn. I'm ready. A pause. He understood. You want to review the structure briefly. The Whitmore Family Support Trust is irrevocable, he said evenly. Corporate trustee, you are the grantor. Your father and sister are permissible beneficiaries through discretionary distributions. You are not listed publicly. Termination of discretionary support is permitted at your direction. All transfers were structured properly under trust distribution rules and reported. I remember. You've transferred just under $2 million over 7 years. Mortgage installments, tuition, club dues, lease guarantees. The mortgage was already 2 months behind before your last funding cycle. I know. His tone softened slightly. Are you reacting to something specific? My father struck me tonight. Silence. In public. Yes. I'm sorry. I stared at the spreadsheet on my screen. Scheduled payments for the next quarter. Tuition installment due on the 15th. Mortgage draft in 12 days. He told me I would never catch up with this family. Daniel inhaled slowly. Reduce distributions or terminate. All discretionary support, effective immediately. He didn't argue. I'll notify the corporate trustee at opening bell. The lender will not receive the next installment. Tuition funding will cease. The lease guarantee exposure will end at the close of the current cycle. That's fine. Your father may attempt refinance. He won't qualify. You've reviewed the debt service ratios. Yes. Understood. After we hung up, I scrolled through years of outgoing wires, PR retainers, piano maintenance invoices, conservatory donations. I remembered the first transfer. I'd called it temporary support. A bridge. 7 years later, the bridge was the structure. My phone lit up. Savannah. I let it ring. Then a message appeared. Dad says you embarrassed him. I read it twice. Then I typed. The trust was discretionary. I closed the laptop. For the first time in years, the machine I built would move without my hand on it. Savannah never had to ask for the spotlight. It just found her. When we were kids, the living room revolved around the piano. My father would sit in his armchair with a drink balanced on the wood rail, watching her fingers move like it proved something about all of us. Again. He'd tell her, not because she made a mistake, but because he liked the way guests leaned forward when she played. I'd be at the dining table with a stack of math worksheets or a science project spread out in pieces. Glue drying, wires exposed, something practical, something quiet. Dad, look, I remember saying once, holding up a small circuit board I'd soldered for a competition at school. Later, Evie, he replied without turning his head. Savannah's in the middle of something. Later never really came. At her first regional recital, she wore a pale blue dress and my father cried. Actually cried? He stood up afterward and told everyone within earshot, She's a natural. Some people are just born with it. That same year, I placed second in a statewide robotics contest. I handed him the medal in the kitchen. He glanced at it, nodded once. That's good. You're steady, reliable. Steady, reliable. That became my lane. In college, when Savannah switched majors 3 times before settling on music performance, my father waved it off. Creative minds need space. When I took a job in tech and worked nights building my first product, he'd smile thinly and say, "Computers are useful. Not exactly inspiring, but useful." Savannah's tuition invoices were framed like investments. Mine were manageable expenses, even after I sold my first company. He didn't ask what it sold for. He asked if I was going to slow down and enjoy life. Enjoy life meant attend events. Smile. Clap at Savannah's performances. Cover what needed covering. Once, about 3 years into the trust, I overheard him on the phone. "She'll handle it," he was saying. "Evelyn's good with money. That's her strength. Not daughter, not pride. Strength." When Savannah called the morning after the party, her voice sounded smaller than usual. "You really embarrassed him," she murmured. "I talked to a catering manager. You know how he is. He gets stressed." I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. "Savannah, do you know who pays your conservatory tuition?" A beat of silence. "Dad said it's handled." "It is." She hesitated. "Why are you being like this?" I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because she truly didn't see it. "I'm not being anything." I told her, "I'm just done playing my role." The line went quiet. Then she cleared her throat. "He's already calling the bank. He thinks there's been some mistake. There hasn't." She didn't answer that. I could hear traffic behind her. Maybe Miami, maybe somewhere else. Movement, noise. A life that had always assumed the ground would hold. It wouldn't this time. 3 days after I called Daniel, my father's name lit up my phone. I let it ring once, twice. On the 4th vibration, I answered. "There's been an error." He began, skipping hello. His voice had that tight edge he used when he was trying not to sound worried. The mortgage payment didn't process. It processed exactly as it was supposed to. A short silence. Papers shuffled on his end. I could picture him at the kitchen counter, phone tucked against his shoulder. Bank statement spread out like an accusation. "I spoke with the lender this morning," he continued. "They're claiming the trust account didn't fund this month's installment." "That's correct. You need to call them." "I don't." His breathing shifted, slower now, controlled. "Evelyn, this isn't funny. I'm not joking." Another pause. I heard Savannah's voice faintly in the background. "What did they say?" she whispered. He turned away from the phone for a second, muffling something I couldn't make out. Then he came back sharper. "You're overreacting to what happened at the party." "I'm not reacting. I made a decision that affects this entire household." "I'm aware." He lowered his voice, like we were negotiating something delicate. "The principal balance on that house is still over $600,000. You know that. The country club dues hit next week. Savannah's conservatory installment is due on the 15th. I know the dates. You can't just pull support without notice. It was discretionary." He went quiet at that. I could almost hear him replaying conversations in his head, trying to remember what he'd signed, what he'd assumed. That trust was established to protect this family. He said finally, "It did. And now it isn't." His tone shifted again, from authority to disbelief. "After everything I've built, this is how you repay me." I pressed my fingers against the edge of the table, grounding myself. "I've repaid you for 7 years. Savannah's voice came closer to the phone. "Dad, give me that." Then she was there, breath a little uneven. "Evelyn, the PR firm called. They're saying the retainer didn't clear." "That's right. You can't just cut that off. I have campaigns scheduled." "I'm sure you do." Her words rushed out. This affects my career. So does being financially independent. She went still on the other end. No comeback. Just air between us. My father took the phone back. His voice was colder now. You will fix this. No, you don't understand the consequences. I understand them better than anyone. He exhaled through his nose, slow and controlled. You think you're teaching us something. I didn't answer. After a moment, he ended the call without another word. An hour later, Daniel forwarded me a copy of the lender's formal notice of default. It was clean, procedural, no emotion, just dates and obligations. I read it once and closed the file. For the first time in years, the numbers weren't moving because of me. The second month was quieter on the surface and heavier underneath. The notice of default had been recorded weeks earlier, but foreclosure is not instant. It moves in stages, deadlines, cure periods, letters sent certified mail. The lender had already warned them twice before my distributions stopped. I knew that because I had seen the prior statements. Savannah called on a Thursday night. They placed a hold on my conservatory account, she said. No tears, just strain. They're saying the semester balance is outstanding. How much is due? $48,000, plus late fees. I know. She went quiet for a second. I could hear her walking across a hardwood floor. The registrar said if it isn't resolved before the next billing cycle, I lose my studio access. That's their policy. My PR firm ended my contract too, she added quickly. They said without the monthly retainer, they can't reserve campaign slots. That also makes sense. You're very calm. I'm steady. She stopped moving. You really aren't going to fix this. I'm not. A few weeks passed before my father tried to refinance. He called from an unfamiliar number. I met with a regional lender. He said, they won't touch it without proof of income. That's standard underwriting. I've never missed payments before this year. You were 2 months behind before I stopped funding. He ignored that. So I secured bridge financing. How much? $200,000? 11% interest? 12-month term. That's expensive. It buys breathing room. For what? For stability. I knew what that meant. For me to step back in. It also adds another lien against the property. I reminded him, it's temporary. High-interest debt rarely is. He didn't argue. He ended the call. A week later, Daniel forwarded the recording confirmation. The hard money loan had been filed. Junior lien attached to the house. Then came the country club. Savannah sent a short message one evening. Board meeting tonight. I didn't reply. The next morning, my Aunt Patricia called. They suspended his membership. She said quietly, delinquent dues. They voted unanimously. I'm not surprised. He thought someone would intervene. I know. Patricia hesitated. He says this is humiliating. It probably is. 2 months after the first missed payment, the lender issued a formal acceleration notice. The cure amount included principal arrears, interest, and late charges. The clock was real now. Savannah left a voicemail that same week. The landlord posted a 3-day notice on my door. Cure or vacate. I'm trying to negotiate. Her voice wasn't angry. It was unsteady. By the 4th month, nothing was theoretical anymore. Mortgage formally in default, bridge loan accruing interest, conservatory access restricted, public relations contract terminated, club privileges revoked. It hadn't collapsed overnight. It had been fragile long before I stepped away. My phone still buzzed. Fewer calls now, more silence between them. The system had not depended on applause. It had depended on funding. Security called just after 9. Ms. Whitmore, there's a Richard Whitmore here to see you. He says he's your father. I stood by the window for a moment before answering. Austin was overcast. Low clouds. No drama in the sky. Is he alone? There's a younger woman with him. Send them up. I had known this was coming. Foreclosure filings become real when they move from letters to court calendars. Pride only delays so long. When the elevator doors opened, my father stepped out first. No club blazer, no polished ease, just a navy jacket and a face drawn tighter than usual. Savannah followed behind him, sunglasses pushed into her hair like a habit she hadn't dropped. My assistant looked toward me. I nodded. It's fine. We moved into the conference room. Glass walls, 3 chairs, a water pitcher no one touched. My father remained standing for a moment, scanning the room as if assessing square footage. So this is where you operate, he said. It's where I work. He sat slowly. Savannah lowered herself beside him, hands clasped. We're in active foreclosure, he began. No greeting. The lender filed a motion for summary judgment. 90 days to cure before the judicial sale. I saw the docket. You're tracking it. Yes. His jaw flexed. You've made your point. This was never about a point. Savannah leaned forward. I had to leave Miami. The landlord enforced the eviction notice. I'm staying at the condo with Dad. I know. You're just watching this happen. I stopped funding it. My father's voice sharpened. We invested in Savannah because she has talent. She represents this family. You were always steady, dependable. That was your strength. There it is, I said quietly. He frowned. What you never saw me beyond utility. That's not fair. It is. He pressed his palms against the table. I trusted you. You relied on me. The difference sat there between us. Savannah swallowed. We didn't know it was you. We thought the trust was structured through an outside benefactor. You never asked who signed the distributions. She looked down. My father's tone shifted, less sharp now, more strained. I didn't expect you to take everything away. I didn't take anything. I stopped providing discretionary support. You know what that means in practice. Yes. He hesitated then. A crack. Small but visible. I thought protecting her, he said, nodding toward Savannah, meant protecting all of us. I didn't know how to manage losing control. It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't pure defiance either. For 7 years, I replied. I kept the structure intact. Mortgage installments, tuition, club dues, lease guarantees. The night of the party, you reduced me to something else. He looked down at his hands. I was angry. You were afraid. His eyes lifted. He didn't deny it. Savannah spoke softly. If you reinstated the trust temporarily just enough to cure the arrears, we could refinance, sell properly, avoid the judicial sale, and then what we rebuild. With whose money? Silence. My father straightened slightly, pride creeping back in. You're dismantling your own family. I'm separating from it. You think you're above us. I think I'm independent. The air conditioner hummed. No one reached for the water. Finally, he stood. Slower this time. You'll regret this. Maybe. Savannah rose as well. She lingered by the door. I didn't see it, she said quietly. What he was doing. What I was letting happen. I know. She nodded once. When the elevator doors closed behind them, the room didn't feel victorious. It felt settled, not lighter, just honest. The sale was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. Judicial foreclosure. Public notice filed. 90 days had passed, and the court approved the final judgment. Daniel forwarded me the docket update at 8:14 a.m. Property set for auction on courthouse steps. He wrote, Opening bid reflects outstanding principal. Accrued interest and fees. I didn't fly to Naples. I didn't log into the live stream either. I read the summary afterward. The house sold below market value, 18% under the last appraisal. Enough to satisfy the mortgage balance and part of the hard money loan, but not enough to preserve what my father called legacy. Savannah texted that evening. It's done. I stared at the message before responding. I know. Dad didn't go to the courthouse. She added, he couldn't. I pictured him at the condo he'd moved into 2 weeks earlier. 2 bedrooms. No gate. No circular driveway. No piano in the living room. What happens now? She asked. You adjust. There was a pause before her next message came through. they sold the Steinway yesterday. Private buyer. I closed my eyes for a moment. That piano had been polished before every recital, tuned before every guest arrived. I start teaching at a studio near Fifth Avenue next week. She wrote, "Kids, beginners, that's work." I replied. A few minutes passed. "Are you coming back to Naples?" she sent. Not for that. The thread ended there. Later that night, I stood by my window in Austin and looked down at the street. Cars moved. People walked dogs. Life didn't feel dramatic. The house in Naples had been an address, a symbol, an investment that no longer held. The paperwork was clean, final. I set my phone face down and turned off the lights. 3 months later, my second company went public. There was no dramatic countdown in my office, no champagne, just a conference room in Austin, a long table, laptops open, and my team refreshing a screen more often than necessary. When the opening bell rang in New York, nothing in the room shifted. The share price moved, up, then down, then steady. Daniel leaned toward me. "Your equity position is valued at approximately $58 million before tax." I nodded. The number felt abstract, clean, distant from everything that had happened in Naples. After the market closed, my assistant knocked. "A reporter from Techline is requesting a statement. Put her through." The interview was straightforward. Product expansion, hiring plans, governance structure. Near the end, she paused. "You've mentioned resilience in prior talks. Is that personal?" I thought. About foreclosure filings, about certified mail envelopes, about a piano leaving through a front door that had once been opened for applause. "Yes," I said. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop cushioning someone from consequences. She was quiet for a moment. "That's direct. It's accurate." Later that week, I signed formation documents for the Carter Initiative. Structured as a private foundation, clear oversight, defined grant criteria, no family involvement. Daniel reviewed the paperwork. "You're comfortable with the endowment size?" "Yes." I signed. That night, Savannah sent a message. I saw the article. Dad did too. I didn't ask what he thought. "I'm still teaching." She added, "It's not glamorous, but it's real. That matters." I replied. Outside my window, traffic moved steadily through Austin, not triumphant, not tragic, just forward. I went back to Naples once, not for my father, not for Savannah, a conference invitation, 2 nights at a hotel near the water. On the second afternoon, I drove past the old neighborhood. The gates were still there. The palm trees still lined the street like nothing had happened. Our house, no. Their old house looked smaller than I remembered. A swing set stood in the yard where the white tent used to be. A little boy ran across the grass chasing a dog. His mother called his name from the porch. No one looked like they were performing. I didn't park. I just slowed down, let the car roll for a second longer, then kept going. Savannah and I text sometimes now. Short updates. She sends me videos of her students practicing scales. My father doesn't call. He sent one email months ago. 2 lines. "I hope you're well." I didn't reply. Not out of anger. Just because there wasn't anything to add. For a long time, I thought being Evelyn Carter Whitmore meant proving I could keep everything afloat. The house, the tuition, the image. I thought stability was love. It turns out, for me, stability is quieter than that. It's waking up without bracing for someone else's approval. It's building something and letting it stand on its own. It's knowing that when I walk into a room, I don't owe anyone proof of my worth. That's what stayed with me. And if you've been following my story here on Revenge Sins, thank you for listening to it the way it happened.